Ladies and gentlemen,
Welcome once again to the TangentCast.
so how have you been this week?
Basically dying. I've been
Great, so moving on.
I've been pretty unwell this week. I had the whole week off from my day job, I guess you could say. So that was not fun. So to be that ill all week, but I'm now finally starting to feel a bit better, which is good. So apart from that, not bad. What about you?
Fine.
Fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So, what games have you been playing this week, Paul?
Everything.
Everything.
A little bit of Quantum Break.
Yeah.
A little bit of Uncharted 4.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
Give Tekera.
Do you want to expand that into something a bit more helpful for our viewers?
Pretty damn awesome.
I've heard it's like the best of the series, basically.
Yeah, it's really good. I've got to say that the writing, the way it starts out, and just the pacing, I wouldn't say it's a million miles away from the previous Uncharted, but it feels like Uncharted refined. And the combat as well definitely feels refined. And I mentioned several times over in my video so far that when you're jumping to ledges, on previous Uncharted, sometimes it felt like you're almost bouncing off surfaces.
Right.
I can't really explain it any better than this feels like it's a lot more lenient.
Okay.
So I would say the jumping is a bit easier in that regard, and camera definitely feels a bit smoother as well. And I've been playing Doom.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing that as well, so we'll get to that, but what else have you been playing?
I think that's about it. Well, little bits here and there of other stuff, but not really playing it.
I finished Dark Souls 3, so that was cool.
Rating out of 10? Because let's upset people.
I don't do 10 out of 10 ratings. It's a really, really good game. It is, in my opinion, the best Souls game ever made, and that includes Bloodborne. Not Demon Souls, because I've never played it, but out of the ones I played, it's the best.
Yeah.
To the point where I finished it, and then I was like, I'm going to re-roll as a Herald. Because I've never played a magic character in that game, like, from one or ever. I've always played, like, a knight or a warrior or something like that. I was like, no, I'm going to try a magic user. And while I haven't been playing it since Doom came out, the magic user was quite fun. So that was that. I played a little bit of Jotun, which is a game that came out forever ago. It's like a indie game. It's like you're a Viking warrior, you die at sea, so obviously you didn't die in battle, so you don't go to Valhalla, so you kind of have to prove yourself to the gods to say, yeah, I'm worthy of going to Valhalla, basically. So basically just going around all these like famous locations like Yggdrasil and getting the powers of the gods and all this other stuff. It's pretty cool from what I've played.
Sounds kind of like our journey as YouTubers.
And then, obviously, we've both been playing Doom, so let's talk about that.
I don't want to say much about it because I don't want to give spoilers.
You can't really spoil that game, because if you're playing it for the story, you're doing it wrong.
I say that, but I deliberately omitted as much footage of Doom as possible. And the reason I did that is because when I went into it, I did not want to go into it with tarnished expectations or tarnished thoughts of how it played. So to me, like, when there's a really big game, I try to stay away as much from footage, as much from spoilers, which is completely reversed, by the way, of how I used to be when I was younger. Like, when I was 14, 15, for example,
yeah,
I would do anything and everything to get information of stuff. Like, I would be paying the GameSpot memberships or the IGN memberships, this is before YouTube was a thing, to download videos.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is particularly true when Xbox 360 was coming out and they were covering the launch, and you could download like everything. And obviously YouTube was, to say it wasn't prevalent is an understatement. So basically I would be on it. So if they said, I don't know, the new controller has a button which is one nanometer slightly larger than the original system, I'd be like, oh my god, what the fuck, barbecue. And now, although I do keep on top of things, obviously, from the profession, when it comes to games,
like trailers and gameplay,
yeah,
and
I watch the trailer to say, okay, this is kind of cool,
but then you don't watch anymore.
No, because otherwise I feel that I get really I basically I like to go in without knowing stuff. So
Yeah.
I find now that it's so easy to become so desensitized to stuff, and it's like you see guys or girls who go into a game and they'll know the best build, they'll know where all the secrets are,
no.
and to me it's
The
like
fun is discovering that yourself, I think.
yeah. And don't get me wrong, something like Final Fantasy VII, I will have a strategy guide. I used to love the strategy guides for
with
that.
a game like that, it's a bit different though.
But I won't read ahead. So for the sake of argument, I won't read, like, at the very end, okay, well, this is what Knights of the Round is, and this is how to get the ultimate build. Because to me, it takes away a lot of the discovery.
Yeah.
But my thoughts on Doom, to summarise, oh my god, what the fuck barbecue give?
Yeah, I mean, I will admit, I was very worried for Doom. After playing that shithouse multiplayer beta, I was really worried for Doom. I was like, if this is how the single player is, it's going to be terrible. But it was a different developer team that made the multiplayer, so I was like, there's still hope. It's fine. Id made the single player. I can't remember the company's name, but the guys that made the Halo 2, I think, multiplayer, made the multiplayer for Doom, and you can really tell. You can really tell. So I was a bit concerned, to be honest, but I saw a live stream of the single player and I was like, alright, this looks actually pretty awesome. So I bought it after watching maybe 10 minutes or so. I was like, alright, this immediately looks like my worries were for nothing about the single player. So I bought it and I've been having a blast. It's really, really good. All of my worries from the multiplayer, they're not there. It's great fun.
Alright.
You know, moving around at the land speed record, shooting demons in the face with cool guns, you know, it's all I could really ask for. I don't give a toss about the story, but it's a Doom game.
The only criticism, if I had to find one, although I like the melee system, I do feel the game places a little too much emphasis. Like, the weapons almost feel a little underpowered, at least the starting weapons, compared to the melee.
I'm not underpowered, I just think it's a different take on the whole looking for health packs thing, because while in a way I kind of miss, like, you know, hunting every nook and cranny for a health pack or whatever, I can kind of see why they changed it to, hey, you can get health from enemies as well as on the map.
Yeah.
Because it keeps the pace going. You're not stopping,
No,
screeching
definitely.
to a halt to go, oh, I'm really low on health. Before I progress, I've got to find some health.
I need a band-aid to fix
Yeah.
my, gaping kidney.
You know, like the fact I've just got shot in the face 50 times by demon lasers, you know, and I need a first aid kit.
Those demon lasers will get you.
So, I actually really
Speaking
like
of
it.
which, you know what we really need to do? We still need to go through the old, what's the word I'm looking for? Terraria.
Oh, yeah.
We really need to do the Terraria
So,
thing.
we're probably better off doing Starbound at this
Either way.
point, now that it's not in early access anymore. Anyway, I think that's everything I've been playing. I mean, I went back to Dark Souls 1 briefly, went, oh god, this controls horribly compared to Dark Souls 3 and turned it off.
Fair enough.
So I guess we should discuss topics and stuff. We've got a few things to talk about this week.
Do you want to lead on, Macduff?
I mean, I guess we could start with Nintendo Annex. What's been cracking with that thing this
My
week?
sanity? One can argue about that one. Well, you know how NX supposedly is not necessarily referring to a console, so it's more of a project. That's how people are interpreting it. So it could be the handheld, and it could be the actual main system.
Yes.
So basically, the early rumours were it's going to be more powerful, or at least equal to the PlayStation 4. Latest rumours are no, it's not. It's actually less powerful than Xbox One. It's not going to be using AMD's technology. They didn't.
Which is what we've been hearing all this time.
No. And the handheld, but whether this carries on to the main system, the handheld is going to be using NVIDIA's Tegra architecture, which means it theoretically should be pretty beastly. And from what we've heard, NVIDIA are actually taking losses for every NX sold initially. And the reason behind that, apparently, is they basically felt bitch slapped by AMD because they got all of the console contracts.
I don't know if that would be true, simply because the Nintendo new CEO, whose name completely escapes me for the second, he has said on record, we will not be selling the NX at a loss at launch.
I'm saying not him. I'm saying basically they're saying that the insiders are saying that if you factor in the costs of the Tegra architecture,
Yes.
the development for it,
Mm-hmm.
and the software. They sold it to Nintendo so cheap that Nvidia are taking the loss, not Nintendo.
Oh, okay. I guess. I mean, it's possible. I mean, maybe they were that desperate to get in on the console game, considering that AMD has obviously got both PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
Yeah, and what this rumor means is that if true, remember, I keep using this, but you know how the CEO of AMD, Lisa Su, had told us that there were 3 contracts that they'd gotten for custom APUs.
Yeah.
Well, those 3 contracts then would be the would be the PS4 Neo,
Yep.
or PS4K, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
The new Xbox, which we know Microsoft are working on.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, that would be Apple.
I mean, because it's all rumor, it could be the NX, it could be Apple, it could be something else entirely. We just don't know.
Well, those are the 3 that have been touted.
Yeah, I know, but the NX was touted before, is what I'm saying.
No. I'm saying that those 4 have been the staple rumours.
Right, I see. I mean, unfortunately, we're not going to be seeing the NX at E3. We're probably not going to be seeing anything about it until Gamescom at the earliest. It's going to be a while before we find anything out.
To be honest, here's my concern. If the NX is really less powerful than Xbox One...
I don't know if they do that again.
Well, they did it for the Wii and it turned out to be really popular.
Yeah, I know, but they tried to make that lightning strike twice with the Wii U and look how that worked out.
It's shitty marketing, though. My concern isn't that the NX is going to do... I think my concern is that if the NX is released 2017,
Yes.
right, unless there's a delay,
Yeah.
Q1 2017,
Mm-hmm.
by the time 2018 rolls around, and we all know how fast things move on, I think the adoption rate by that point of the new Xbox and the PS4K is going to start increasing exponentially. So basically what I'm saying is you're going to have a system which is going to be so far behind the graphical abilities.
That's what I'm worried about. I mean, we haven't had official confirmation of the NX or Xbox 1.5 or whatever you want to call it, but everyone knows they're going to happen, and I'm sure Nintendo knows as well. They probably know more than we do because they've got their insider contacts or whatever.
Yeah.
So they've got to know this are the supposed specs. They're obviously not going to know what they are until they're officially announced, but they probably know roughly.
Well, we know the official specs of the...
Yeah, I know, but you know how it is. Like, they haven't officially 100% said this is what it uses, this is the components, this is the T-flops or whatever. But what I'm saying is Nintendo probably do know more than we do, is my point.
You know,
so would they really do it again? Because one of the things that shot the Wii U in the kneecaps was the fact that it was so underpowered in comparison to the current gen consoles.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny because if you look at the new generation of GPUs coming out,
yeah,
you're going to get a system which is so far behind, I refer to the PS4K,
yeah,
so far behind what the even mid-range GPUs are going to be able to put out.
right.
Because Polaris, without really clocking it too high, the Polaris 10s, or the GTX 1070 or 1060, they're going to outpace the PS4K by not just a little bit. We're talking significant margins, and the CPUs are going to be so much more powerful. So here's my concern. You've got the Xbox or the PS4 if you've got not much money.
Yeah.
And then if you've got mid amounts of money, I'm just wondering what the hell is going to happen, because how many people really can afford to buy... I mean, you will obviously get the hardcore gamers, but the average gamer cannot afford or does not have time to play. I mean, you and I are basically doing this on top of a regular job. But even if we were only doing this purely, it would be so hard to keep on top of all the games which are out.
It's physically impossible for 2 people to do that because...
No, I'm saying, no, imagine that
There's so many games. There's so many.
And that's not even it. I mean, I've got a back catalogue from 2014. I've not even completed Dragon Age Inquisition.
Well, if I quickly click on my Steam library here, and how do you look how many you've got?
We come to games.
And I have 205 games here. Now, some of those are, review copies and stuff, and there are some over on GOG and Origin, Uplay and whatever. But my point is, I have played probably not even 10% of those.
I mean, I'm the same, and I've got so many games, and it's so difficult because even if you say that the PS4K and the Xbox One are going to have a lot of crossover, and the PC, they will, but even so, then it just makes it even harder because I think folks are going to have to make some really hard decisions.
Yeah.
And I think Nintendo have an option. What I think would be quite interesting is if Nintendo can come out with a lot of exclusives. If they can come out with a lot of... And I don't just mean fucking Mario. I'm sorry. You know what? Mario's great, but here's the thing. If you're not interested in Mario, Mario's no longer a fucking system seller. And it's the same for... You need to release the Metroids. You need to release, like, everything. No, not a shitty on-rails title known as Star Fox. We're talking, like, they should... If they'd have done Star Fox how people wanted Star... Because...
Well, I won't call it on-rails. It's bad from what I've heard.
Because people are saying, no one really wanted Star Fox. No. Most fans...
People wanted Star Fox 64 again, just with better graphics. That's pretty much what they wanted, and that's kind of what they gave us, except, hey, you have to use these really shitty controls.
Yeah. So, my point being that, look, if you've got... My opinion, if you're fairly affluent and you can afford a few systems, you might buy a PC, you might buy an Xbox, but more likely you're going to buy a PS4, you're going to buy a PC, and then it would take an awful lot to convince you to buy the NX because there are so many titles out there, and the game production, it's not just that there are more games coming out, but now a game that's we consider to be a bit crap would have been amazing back in 2007 or 8.
The overall standard of games has gotten a lot better. Now, obviously, on Steam especially, there's a lot of shite. There's a lot of
That's
shite
one of the downfalls of
Steam.
PC games.
It's just because there's no quality control, so you can get like chimps like in Digital Homicide, just literally doing copy paste and release it and make money off of it, and that's the problem. But ignoring that, mostly it's been a long time since I played a truly awful game.
Yeah, and if it's AAA,
I played games that are like it's kind of bland or mediocre, or it's not my thing. I played lots of those. But the last time I played an awful game, like one that I'm just like inwardly throwing up or something, I don't even know.
I mean, just think about the releases this year alone. You've had Uncharted. You've got, Final Fantasy. This is just not in any order. You've got Final Fantasy. You've got Doom. You've got Uncharted. You've got
Dishonored 2's coming out later on this year.
Is it Resident Evil as well? I think.
No, they haven't said. I would be surprised if that's out this year.
Oh, it's probably going to be next year.
They haven't said. So
yeah.
It might be, but Titanfall 2's coming out. That's for sure.
Which looks amazing, and I really want
that. Oh, what else have we got? Obviously, Call of Duty, Battlefield.
Yeah, Call of Duty, Battlefield.
What else have we got? Is Fortnite out this year? I don't know if they said.
Basically...
Well, there's a ton of games coming out this year is our point, and there's already a ton of games already out, like, Dark Souls and everything else that we've already talked about a lot recently.
And what makes it even more...
Nintendo's got a lot of competition, not only in consoles, but just, like, they have to have good third-party support. They have to. So they can't do another weird gimmick like the Wii U and just be like, fuck you, third-party, because that's another thing that kneecapped the Wii U as well. The fact that all the ports were really heavily delayed or didn't come out at all, and then they were just poor versions of the real thing, because the performance was so crap. So
basically,
they're in a sticky wicket, to be honest, and they have to not do the things that they normally do.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, we talked about that for long enough, I think. So let's sort of move on swiftly to a quick thing about Fabled Legends. Now, obviously, we know it's been cancelled, RIP and all that. But what's interesting is that there's been some comments from supposed industry sources that basically it cost $75 million before Microsoft pulled the plug, and it was a project that nobody wanted to work on. Basically, Lionhead didn't even want to work on it. They wanted to make Fable 4, or a more traditional Fable game, and Microsoft were like, no, you've got to make this game, basically. And they didn't want to work on it, and they weren't enjoying developing it, and when they were playing it and doing playtesting and betas and everything, the feedback was kind of mixed, because it wasn't a very good game, because I guess they just lacked the passion. They were being forced to make a game they didn't really want to make, and then the fact that it was almost done and then Microsoft pulled it after spending $75 million just kind of shows that the product that they had was just not fit for purpose. Because if I just kind of realised that if they'd had a workable product to release when it's that close to being finished,
they'd at least released it to get some money
They probably
back.
would have released it just to at least make some of the money back. But the fact they didn't do that when they spent $75 million, which is a big ask, even for Microsoft, shows a lot about the state that game was probably in.
Yeah.
So I just find it interesting that even Lionhead didn't want to work on it. They wanted to work on a real Fable game.
Well, we did get contacted by a couple of people who were in the beta, and they did say that it was not in a good state.
Yeah, and that was after a long time of development as well.
Yeah, pretty much.
Numerous changes, numerous graphical changes, and all this other stuff. So it was a bit of a mess all round.
Anyway.
Yeah, I guess we should talk about the 1080 and the 1070, which just got revealed the other day. So I'll leave this over to you.
You know, I'm actually quite happy about them. Although it does lead us to a statement from, an email I got from a viewer. And I actually noticed the same thing. I might as well bring it up now and kind of throw them all together. So, I know what he said without bringing up the email.
Yes, Robert Holar, I guess.
Exactly. So, essentially, he emailed me asking whether the new cards can handle asynchronous compute. Or, not asking, but basically pointing out that the white paper points that the cards... Basically, NVIDIA were doing a slight white lie, because they're saying that they handle asynchronous compute better, but in reality, their own white papers are pointing out that they still rely on context switching. And I did contact NVIDIA about this. I did email them, but I've not received a response.
You probably won't.
Oops. I just destroyed her pen.
You just broke my pen.
Well, may I add, this is a bank pen, so she's...
It doesn't matter what pen it is.
Well, it's not my fault it was fragile. Anyway... She doesn't look happy.
Wanton destruction of private property.
Yeah, whatever. It's not my fault it broke.
You're only like pulling it and like bending it and basically strangling it.
Don't talk about my sex life.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I did email them, and I got a response from one chap, and he said to email another chap. And that chap hasn't responded after several days.
Right.
And I basically said, hey, can you clarify what you mean by the improved asynchronous? And they did not respond. And it's actually quite funny, because although the performance of the 1070 and 1080 are pretty darn impressive, there's not been big improvements on asynchronous compute from the leaked benches. But whether that's true for the final benches or not, we don't know.
I was going to say, like, let's not write it off just yet when the card's not out and we don't have it to test.
But I will say that aside from that, the actual architecture and the performance of these cards is damn impressive. I mean, to put it into context, if you've got one single 980 now, you're 50% slower than the 1080. It's quite literally the equivalent of two 980s in SLI.
Admit, I am looking at the 1070 myself for a bit of an upgrade.
You know what's really insane about all this, though? Because both NVIDIA and AMD are going to put out similar performing cards, most likely, and maybe not the Polaris 10, but when Vega comes out and we've got all the lineups, the cards are just going to be nuts. And these cards, we've not seen performance jumps like this for a long time.
It's kind of been very sort of incremental for a long time now.
Yeah, like the 680 to 780, it was okay. It wasn't, it was a pretty big jump, and the 780 to the 980.
Yeah, there's a big jump between them, but like not wow, oh my god, just like an increase.
Yeah, 2.5 times or whatever.
Yeah, which is okay, but
there have been some big jumps, like in history. For example, when the Voodoo 2s were first released, way back in the day, especially if you could SLI the buggers. And of course, you had the 9800, or rather 9700 Pro from ATI back in the day. And then you had the NVIDIA 8800 GTX. And you've had a couple of other cards which were like, oh my god, this is a revolution. But for a long time, we've not seen such a big jump in performance. And there have been other cards which certainly were big in performance. Like, for example, if you bought the, let's say, the R9 290 back in the day, or you bought the GTX 780 Ti, or something like that, you'd have been pretty darn happy.
Mm.
But the performance jump of 2 to 2.5 times performance per watt is just nuts.
Yeah, it's looking pretty interesting. And I guess the last, maybe second to last topic is Zen, which we had some informations about as well.
Yeah, so basically, I can't remember when I covered this, but I think I forgot to mention it in the previous podcast.
Yeah,
But
you did.
Anyway, the point being that supposedly the Zens, actually it's back in May, when's that?
May the 6th, yeah, which
Yeah.
is before the last podcast.
Yeah, so I just want to quickly touch on, supposedly the new Zen lineup is only going to have octo cores, so that's only 8 with SMT, which means 16 threads. And supposedly, once again, all these are rumours, but supposedly there will be variants which are 6 cores, which I'm assuming are going to be for yield purposes. So, for the sake of argument, if they release a processor that's only got 7 capable, well, it's either that or they throw away the, or they.
She's throwing my pen on the floor.
No. So supposedly, let's say for example they produce a processor and there's only 7 cores which work.
Mm-hmm.
For yield purposes, you've got one of two choices: you either throw it in the bin or you sell it as a 6 core.
Yeah, which we know which one they're gonna do.
Yeah. So the rumors are that they want to focus on 8 and 6 cores, so they can basically slap Intel because their focus has been on the 4 cores, or on the X99. You've obviously got the 5820K, which is 6, or the higher end. But it's quite interesting, and I'm really happy to see that. I think that's really awesome.
Obviously, we don't know the exact specs. I'm guessing we've got rumors, but no 100% hard facts.
The performance is supposedly an IPC of 40% over Bulldozer, or rather Excavator. But the problem with that, because I've seen some people who are touting that means that it's going to be behind Kaby Lake, which is obviously the successor to Skylake. But there are a couple of problems saying that. What speed Zen clocked at? I don't know, because NVIDIA have not said. What speed is Kaby Lake going to run at? I don't know. I mean, there's rumours, but what's a rumour? And so, if you've got, for example, the processor which let's say you've got 2 processors, each one runs at 3 gigahertz, but one's got a much more efficient architecture and it's doing like 30% more work. Well, obviously that processor's faster.
Yeah, it's not all about clock speed.
Yeah, but it's just a little weird at the moment. So I think overall, Zen has a really, really good chance, because even if...
Yeah, because my question was going to be, are AMD finally going to bitch slap Intel in the CPU market? I don't think there's going to be a clear winner. What I'm hoping for is one of 3 scenarios. 1, AMD are slightly behind in performance, right?
But their price is better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
if you want a more entry level with still decent performance kind of thing.
2, they're better than Intel if there's more threads. So for the sake of argument, let's say you have an application which is only using 3 or 4 threads most.
Yeah.
Intel might have the advantage because they've got a higher performance per thread.
Right, I see.
But if you're running a lot of cores, then let's say, for example, you're doing a lot of gaming, you're doing a lot of multimedia work, that type of thing, and it eats up a lot of cores, for example, 3D rendering, this is going to be great for like a cheap workstation. I think that would be amazing. Another option is I want AMD to win. And it's not because of bias or anything like that, but I think it would be good for the industry, for Intel to have a bit of a back seat for a while.
Yeah, I mean, Intel have been in the driver's seat for a very long time when it comes to processors. AMD, they put out good processors, but they just haven't been able to topple them from the throne, at least from what I've seen in terms of raw sales. No. They just haven't been able to. So Intel have just kind of had it easy. They haven't had to worry about anyone nipping at their heels, really. And that's not good for innovation.
No,
if they don't have to work to beat their competition, then they're just going to stagnate.
You know, one of the weird things I heard, and it was some speculation and some industry murmurings.
Right.
This one's pretty weird. This one stems back from a couple of months ago.
Okay.
But basically, I can't quote this verbatim because it was a while back, but and there's so much information floating in my noggin. But basically, you know how Intel have built in GPUs on their CPUs.
Yeah.
Some models, anyway.
Yes.
Well, they produce those. I think they're the GT series or whatever. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, the basically from what I've heard, Intel do not like Nvidia, and they want to jump on top of them.
Right.
In some regards. So what they wanted to do, the rumours were that they were considering approaching AMD and asking to license their GCN architecture for their CPUs for certain processors. Which could be quite interesting.
That would be interesting because it would also be kind of satisfying to see Nvidia get bitch slapped a little bit as well.
You know, I'm not, because I've gotten asked a couple of times, like, do I have a preference for company? And I honestly don't, because there was a time where Nvidia, and you might not believe this, but there was a time that Nvidia were getting fucking massacred in the market in terms of the product placement. Like, if Nvidia had not have had such goodwill with their customers, they would have gotten ravaged back in the day.
Yeah.
And this is particularly true when, like, the leaf blowers were around. And if you get that reference, props to you. The leaf blower range, and like the 9800, it was 9700, 9800. They blatantly were much better than what was available at the time, and it wasn't good. And I kind of felt to myself, you know what? That's really not good for the industry.
Yeah, we've kind of got the opposite problem now. Where AMD are much more competitive there than they are with the CPU, but Nvidia do still kind of reign.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't necessarily think they should.
It's becoming less and less so.
No, definitely.
Because AMD just put out really good graphics cards, and not only that, Nvidia have done some things that have pissed a few people off, like GameWorks just raping performance.
You know what I think
like
the big problem that hurt AMD was, for a while their drivers weren't great.
Yeah, that's true.
And now, I've got to say, I switched between. We've got multiple systems at RGT, and we've got multiple graphics cards, which is why that I switched them depending on the project. So we've got like 2 or 3 rendering rigs at my place, and Amy's got a couple of systems as well. So it's like I'm literally switching between Nvidia and AMD all the time.
Yeah, so you get a good look at each.
Yeah, and I to be honest now, I find both sets of drivers so interchangeable. Back in the day, I used to really dislike AMD's.
I was going to say, like, recently, Nvidia's drivers have actually been balking people's systems.
I know.
Blue screens and all sorts of problems. I've kind of been nervous each time I've updated my drivers. I've kind of avoided it until I have to be honest. Until a new game comes out and I have to update it to get the optimal performance. I don't like doing it because the last, 3 drivers from Nvidia have broken something. And I'm just like, that's not good for anybody, especially when, this is my PC for work, so I need it.
You know, what really hurt Nvidia as well is the GTX 970. And I'm surprised, to be honest. I think the card was good, the 970, but I'm really surprised, although there was backlash, and they're still facing backlash about the fact that the advertised specs of the card weren't what they were.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised people were so... I wouldn't say they forgave them, but it blew over a lot faster than what I thought it would. I honestly thought it was going to last a bit longer.
That's the thing. Like, there seemed to be a sort of short memory syndrome where people get really offended about a thing for a short period, and then they move on to the next thing. But
then, to be honest, that's what's happening with Nintendo. Like, for example, the fact that they've not actually, until my knowledge anyway, even told users while they've been deleting their Mario Maker levels. Like,
they just get a pass because they're Nintendo.
Yeah, and I think it's so harsh. It's like, if you're going to delete someone's levels, that's fine. That's your prerogative as a company.
But at least tell them why.
Yeah, like, is it because their levels are too popular and they've been on the top too long? Is it because they've not been used enough? Is it because why? Just say the reason. Is it because you've been drawing a penis in the background?
I was going to say, maybe you've got a penis made out of coins or something. Like, that would be fair enough, but I don't think that's been the case for most of the maps that have been deleted. But obviously, I don't know. I don't even own a Wii U.
Yeah, Mario the whore in the background there. He wants that coin penis, damn it.
The only thing that even tempted me to get a Wii U was Pokken Tournament, and I'm still hoping that comes out on the NX so I don't have to buy a Wii U to play it.
You know, I'm sure there's a joke about coin penis and amiibo sales, but... just couldn't think what it is.
It's out there somewhere. Someone will think of it.
If someone has an amiibo.
If someone can think of a joke about coin penises and amiibos, put it in the comments.
Yeah, and we'll read it out next episode.
We'll read it out next week.
Yeah, because that's tops.
Oh, I need that in my life.
What a coin penis?
A coin penis, yeah. A coin penis made out of amiibos.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anyway, I think that's us done for this week, unless there's anything else you'd like to discuss.
No, I'd say that after a coin penis amiibo, there's not much really you can say after that.
Yeah, I mean, how can you top that? You just can't. It's impossible, really.
No.
Anyway, thank you.
You know what's great?
Huh?
You know what's great?
No.
The fact that Mario actually has the porn moustache as well.
Yeah, he does a bit, yeah.
Yeah, and you know how he's always going over Peach's castle to give her cake? It's a lie as well.
It is. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, guys. We'll see you next week. As always, hit us up with any questions on the usual places. Thank you again for listening, and see you next week.
Pretty much.
Bye.
Bye. Pretty much.